Are you looking for true happiness? Well, today I'm super excited. Welcome back to the Crack the Code podcast, and I'm here today with Treena Chabot. Treena did what she thought she was supposed to do in life, but it didn't feel the way it was supposed to feel. A career, kids, house, and spouse were not enough to make her happy. In her darkest hours, she decided not to end her life, even though she felt stuck and empty. Almost by accident, Treena realized it was up to her to change her future and give herself what was missing. She had to turn inward and reconnect to the true self that had been buried over the years. Treena grew in important ways and is now a supportive and insightful teacher for others in their life journey. So welcome, Treena. So excited.
Thank you so much, Cora. Yeah, we've known each other a little while now, so I'm glad to support you on your podcast.
Yes, and it's nice to have you here, and I'm super excited for what you've got going on. I love this. We'll be talking a little bit more about your Million People Happier, but I'd love you to share a little bit with the listeners about sort of how you got on this journey of helping people find their happiness. And obviously, most of us go through something before we get there. And what was your story?
Well, thank you for asking. I guess it goes back to that darkest hour that you just mentioned in the intro there. And it was February 2010. I can remember being in the yellow little bedroom in our basement in our house out in the country. And I was lying on the bed and I was crying. And I didn't know what was wrong. I was just depressed and the room was spinning and I didn't know what was happening. And my thoughts turned to thinking about the people that I would leave behind if I killed myself. And my thoughts moved on to my kids at the time. They were 11 and 14. And I can remember hearing myself say, they're strong. They'll be okay eventually. And then, like a slap in the face, it was like, no, they won't be okay. What are you talking about? How could they ever be okay? And so I knew that that wasn't the answer. I knew that I wasn't going to do that, but I still didn't know what to do. So I still felt stuck. And the emotions had built up over the years, and I didn't know what to do with them. So I'm back at work the next day, sitting at my desk, and I'm on a break, but the tears are coming out, like the emotions are just trickling out. They can't be held back anymore. And my work colleague, friend, who used to sit like diagonally behind me, was now right beside me. And I said, hello. And he says, are you okay? What's wrong? And so I said to him, like, I think I need a divorce, but like, I don't know what to do. I'm depressed, but I can't do this to my husband or my kids, and I just don't have a choice. And he says something that was what I needed to hear at that time. And he says, Treena, you always have a choice. And then he went on to tell me how he went through something similar, and it was very difficult for many years, but he got through it, and he said that I would too. So I had a choice and I had a decision to make. And so a couple months later, I moved out with the kids to an apartment in the city. And of course, the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And, going through that and everyone's emotions and that. But then I got into another relationship after things settled down. And one day I was looking at him thinking, like, what is his problem? Like, why doesn't he do what I want him to do? And why doesn't he say what I want him to say? Are all men the same? And then I'm like, no, he's not the same in this way or this way. Like, if that's not what it is, then what is it? And it's like, oh, it's me. I'm the common denominator in my life. So the lessons there were, you always have a choice, even though you think you don't. And even though it's a choice you don't want to make, it's there for you. But also, being the common denominator means that we need to look at ourselves and what we need to improve in ourselves so that we stop having those patterns, right? We stop having the same problems in life over and over again. So I guess my first choice could have been to do the inner work instead of blowing up my life, but I blew up my life. And it all worked out in the end, but it involved a lot of heartaches. So
Yeah.
anyway, If that helps people to not blow up their life, great. If you're going to blow up your life, at least don't blow it up twice.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a hard decision to make. And I think a lot of people, when they're in your situation, don't always really realize that they do have a choice and that they get to make the decision and to know often that it is you, like it starts with you. Switching partners isn't necessarily going to change anything,
Yeah,
right?
one of my favorite sayings is wherever you go, there you are.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people take that into consideration. They think the
No.
grass is always greener on the other side and that if they change the scenery that it's going to change things, but if you don't change yourself, then you're just going to create those issues all over again.
And the thing about happiness is that these things can make you happy, but the happiness doesn't last. So a
Yeah.
new partner, of course, it's exciting at first, but then it wears off. A new job is exciting at first, but then it wears off, right? It ends up being the same thing as it was before. So
Yeah.
absolutely, we have to do the inner work. So kind of along that line, I'd like to share a story that I've only shared with my clients.
Hmm.
When we look at our past, we need to learn from our mistakes, right? And one of the easiest things to do is just say, like, what does that situation say about me? And so I started looking at this, and I had a pattern of giving away my power. So I let other people make a decision, and then I'm mad at them, or I think I don't have power in a situation. So I started to think, like, when did that start? Because when I was growing up, like, I was not powerless. People would ask me to speak up on their behalf. So that wasn't me. So what happened? And it all went back to one day. So I had just started dating my now ex-husband, and he would come over to my parents' farm after work. And the first day I said, "Oh, how was your day? Did it go quickly or was it long?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, this and this and that, whatever." And then the second day I asked the same question, and he kind of answered it. And then the third day I asked the same question, like I don't know what questions to ask, right? I'm
Yeah.
15 years old. And he got so angry with me. He says, "Don't you care about me? You can't even ask me a normal question. Like, can't you put some effort into your question asking?" And I'm just like, "Ugh." I didn't know what to do. And so from like an evolutionary perspective, that relationship was now threatened and my future is threatened, my security is threatened. And so I need to get on board with what he wants. Otherwise, he's out of the picture and I'm in trouble. I'm probably going to die, right? No,
Mm.
I'm not going to,
Yeah.
obviously, but my
Yeah.
brain thinks I am. And so it's like, okay, so just like make him happy. So making him happy became my priority throughout the whole relationship. And, I wanted to drop out of university after 2 years. I was in commerce. I didn't like it. I didn't want to be an accountant or a banker or whatever. And I wanted to get out. And he's like, "Oh, you've already done 2 years. Just do another one and don't quit." And he wouldn't let me quit. And it's like,
Mm.
I gave him my power again. I could have just said, "Look, I've made up my mind. I'm doing it." But I didn't want to threaten the relationship. And then when the babies came along, right, the way that he wanted to raise them all of a sudden became the way I wanted to raise them. So I didn't even have a mind of my own. I was just doing whatever he wanted to do. So,
Yeah.
my advice there would be like, stop and look at what you're doing. And is this what you really want? Or is this someone else telling you what to do? So when it came time to leave that marriage, let me tell you, I was exploding power. It's like, get
Mhm.
me out of here. I'm taking all this power back. The pendulum went the complete opposite way and then, of course, settles back down. But these things that we just don't see while we're in it, we need
Yeah.
to have self awareness. We need to be conscious of what we're doing so that we don't end up in these places.
Yeah. And that's the hard part, I think. How do you make that space to be able to step back when you're in the situation?
Yeah, and I mean, that's all part of your self-care, right? And your like your daily practice of whatever you're going to do. And so when we talk about a happiness daily practice, self-care is definitely part of that, right? Like, sure, it's a nice bath to relax so that you're not
Mm.
stressed, but it's also like, okay, what's going on in here? And let's journal, let's get it out on paper, or let's do some meditation if we're looking for an answer. Like we need to have a basket full of tools so that we know how to deal with whatever's happening on that given day.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think would help you the most to get through? Because at that time when you were so emotional.
What would have helped me the most would have been to not think I needed to know everything and to not think I couldn't show weakness and, to be the one, to not think I had to be the one with all the answers. And not to say it was therapy or that, because at the end of the marriage, I did try it and it didn't work for me. I didn't like the style, whatever.
Mm.
Um, so like maybe having read some more spiritual books along the way, connecting to myself more. I think that that's been one of the biggest things in my life is just becoming more spiritual.
Mhm.
Uh, in a way that I feel supported. Like I'm here on earth for a reason. So, I must be important. I must be
Yeah,
significant. And
of
I feel
course.
that the universe wants me to do well so that I can help others. And
Yeah.
so just to feel those arms around me kind of thing, right? But so probably, well, like I can't say if I would have had different
Yeah.
parents because they
Yeah.
were who they
Yeah.
were, but if I would have had like a spiritual mentor kind of
Mhm.
thing
Mhm.
and known about inner work, like we never knew about inner work, we knew about how to get a job and how to get people to like us.
Yeah.
And those things
Yeah.
are not the road to happiness.
Yeah. And emotions. I mean, none of us were trained
Yeah.
on how to deal with our emotions. I mean, you said you were very
Mhm.
emotional and you were crying and stuff, which is good because we need to get them out so we can process them. But
Yeah.
we've never really been trained how to deal with emotion, what to do with it. So,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. And I know on my show, I do a lot of interviews with ladies that do other kinds of healings and all those modalities. Like you said, the counseling, that style didn't work for you. The thing is, we don't even know what's out there a lot of the times to try different kinds of things.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I think so the people I work with are the ones who are busy, crazy busy. They don't have time to be on social media looking up things. They don't have time to be researching things. Like they're in fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
They can't even get their laundry and their dishes done. So how are they supposed to know about these things and even practice them? So I
Yeah.
think we have to make these things a priority in our lives.
Yeah. So how did you make that shift from, that emotional, changing your whole life around and getting into your whole thing around happiness? How did that happen?
Well, it's funny because like being in the teaching job, there was something nudging me, like you have to do more, you have to do more. So then I go on this whole life purpose journey and what am I supposed to be doing? And the answer is, well, it's something to do with what you're already doing. Like everything you're doing now is working up to what you're supposed to be doing. So I thought, oh, okay, it's more HR stuff. It's more teaching managers on how to treat their employees properly. And so I wrote a book and I designed this program and I started delivering it during COVID. And then I thought, oh, I don't like this. It's like I'm so over it. I've been doing this work and schooling for, 25 years at that point. And it's like, okay, this isn't it. Like I know it's not it because I can't move forward. I don't want clients. So if I don't want clients, it means I don't like the work. So what am I supposed to do? So I talked to a coach
Yeah.
and she said like your purpose is linked to the biggest epiphany that you've had in your life.
Mm.
And for me, it was the story that I said about choice and then having to do that inner work and how unhappy, like I was in despair, and then how I turned that around and did the work and now have happiness that's unshakable, right? It doesn't matter what's going on around me. It's not going to make me unhappy with myself. And it's not going to threaten my relationships. We can handle anything kind of thing. So I thought, well, okay, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And then at the same time, I was doing some coaching training myself. And one of the modules was happiness coach. So I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, 1 + 1
Uh,
equals 2. And then it was just like, ding, 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 ding. Yes, you may move on to the next level. You got it
okay.
right.
Awesome.
Yeah, it felt so
Uh,
good. So what I tell people about that is you got to just start, just
yeah.
try something and see how it feels, and then just keep moving in whatever direction it takes you, and you will get there.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest part is the
Yeah.
getting there, no matter what. If you're starting a business, making a change, changing your exercise program, how you're eating, any of that stuff, it does take some effort. And it's always like pushing the boulder up the hill at the beginning to make that choice and kind of get moving with it.
Absolutely. Like I think that was about 2 years ago that I decided on happiness, and so finally 2 years later it's like, okay, this is like all set now and everything's ready to go full steam ahead.
Yeah.
So
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 you're
being
developing a
patient.
program? for
Yeah,
people to come into?
yeah. So I did the beta test in the fall, and it was really good. It's like online learning and then come together. But what I found is that people are at different paces.
Mm.
So every week was good for some, but not for others. And so I'm changing it to be more customizable. So like, you come at the beginning of the month and you kind of commit to how much you're willing to work on this month. Someone might say, I'm going to do the whole program this month. And someone might say, I really think I can only do a couple lessons.
Yeah.
And then we'll check back in next month. And then just adding on workshops and whatever. So what I want to do is also have a community. So even when they're done their 12 weeks of lessons, they can still come for the planning session, come and celebrate your wins, come and socialize. And I think that goes back to, having someone to talk to about your stuff. So, the spirituality and that is one thing to pull you through, but you really need a community of people who are going through the same thing you are and they understand you.
Yeah, for sure. That's so amazing. And I love that. I know you have a new thing that you've started called A Million People Happier. I just
Mhm.
signed up for that myself today. So I'm super excited to see what
Nice.
that's all about. So maybe you can let the listeners know what you've come up with for that one.
Well, last Monday I woke up and I said, happiness has a ripple effect. So, and it supposedly goes 3 layers. So, if I make you happy, then you tonight at dinner will make your husband happy. And then he's talking to someone on the phone and he makes them happy, right? Or happier. We're not going to make people
Yeah.
happy, but
Yeah.
we vibrate higher and other people do too. So that's good. So if we can ripple out, I messaged my math calculating friend and I said, how many people do I have to influence for 3 levels to hit 1 million people? And he says 100. And
Yeah.
so when I looked it up, it says the average person can influence about 100 people, 100 to 150,
Okay.
and like have good relationships, right? So cousins, siblings, all of that, it's about 100 people on average. And then if each of those people have 100 people and each of those people have 100 people, that's 1 million people. And I think that
Ah,
that's really doable.
yeah.
So what I get people to do is go to millionpeoplehappier.com, make the pledge, and the pledge is that you're going to work on yourself. Like you're just going to look into it, right? Just slowly move forward and whatever that means to work on yourself or become more spiritual and more happy and those kinds of things. And that is going to have a ripple effect by nature. And then to support people in doing that, I'll send out some resources every week. So if you don't even know where to start, resources are coming. And then you just try that for a week, so we know
Yeah.
that gratitude leads to happiness. So you might practice gratitude for a week and see how that goes, or a month, right? And so you develop your own happiness practice of things that work for you, because I can say do A, B, and C, but they might not work for you. So
Yeah.
we need to have a whole bunch of ideas and find out what works for us. And then when we're happier, the people around us are happier, and so on and so on. So
Yeah, I know. And it always doesn't always take that much. I mean, I know it's I say to people, when you're out and you look at somebody and they look kind of grumpy, but if you smile at them, then they smile and everybody feels better. It's
yeah,
pretty amazing how small of something can a difference can make. So I
yeah.
think that's a
Well,
super good idea. Mm.
it's kind of, thank you. It was kind of funny on social media the other day. Someone made a rude comment on like just sarcasm and stupidity kind of thing
Yeah.
on something I had posted. And I could have got into it, right? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding, buddy. And I
Yeah.
just put LOL.
Yeah. I know.
Just LOL. I'm not engaging with you.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that didn't suck me down, the rabbit hole with him. And he just moved on with his life too. So I think, biting our tongues is good in some cases, but like you
Yeah.
say, just injecting some happiness in other people's lives too, just a smile or a friendly comment or a helping hand.
Yeah. Well, and you feel better too. And yeah, it's nice
Absolutely.
to, and it's easy and it doesn't cost anything. It's not like a big expense or anything. You have to get out there to spread it around.
No,
And
exactly.
that's pretty cool that you figured out the numbers. I like that.
Well, if we would have done 150 people and 150 and 150, I think it was 3.4 million. And
Yeah.
that's why I didn't put a number at the beginning of million people happier. You want to make 2 million people happier?
Yeah.
You want to make 5 million people happier? Then you go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so it's great. And well, just before we wrap up here, I was wondering if you had one or two little tips. I think you have something that you'd be giving away to the listeners. It'll be in the show notes. Um,
Okay. Yeah. So my signature talk right now is called The Inner Game: 4 Plays for Winning at Happiness. And that's where I talk about 4 milestones, I guess, in my, past 13 years from despair to happiness. And when I thought about, what is the most value that I can share to a large audience on a stage kind of thing, it's like 4, like, large areas that have really made a difference in my life. So I call them the 4 plays. I have a play card that they can download. And so, they can go to treenachabot.com, get the download, and that'll sign them up for a newsletter as well. And I don't know if I should spoil those, but I know that
Yeah, you have to.
spirituality is one of them.
Yeah.
Spirituality is definitely one of them, and they can go and
Okay.
look at the other ones.
Yeah.
And also, I can do that talk for groups as well. So if
Cool.
someone out there is looking for a personal development speaker, then we can do a virtual talk for your audience wherever you are.
Awesome. That's so
Yeah.
great. Well, so excited to have you on. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to us today, Treena, because I know a lot of people are definitely looking for more happiness. And folks, if you're listening to this and you want to learn more, make sure to go and take a look at Treena's offer for her 4 plays for winning at happiness and sign up for the Million People Happier, because we all could use a little bit more of that right now. And you know what? It's just never too late.